So, welcome all to our Wingfield Station project update. Before we start, just some general housekeeping. I think we're all used to this by now, but we are recording the Zoom so we can share it later. Please try and stay on mute and keep your cameras off during the presentation. If you have any questions or concerns, you can add them to the chat box at the bottom of the screen. There will be a chance for question and answers at the end of the presentation when you'll be invited to unmute and ask any questions or add questions to the chat box. So we hope you enjoy this presentation. Alan, over to you.
Thank you, Lucy. First of all, a few introductions, and then I'll give a very brief resume of the background to this project for anyone who hasn't joined us before and isn't up to speed. My name is Alan Morrison, as you can see on the screen. As I introduce a few others, could you each please give us a wave on the screen for the benefit of the other viewers? I'm one of the three trustees managing this project. My colleague Barry Joyce is also there. Oh, he's gone off video, so you can't see his wave. And Peter Milner, who is the lead trustee from the Historic Building Trust, managing this project. Lucy, you have already met. She is our project officer on this project and also the executive officer for the Historic Building Trust. Also in the screen is Rachel Costigan and Bill Bevan, who are our two project engagement coordinators, managing volunteers, managing volunteer research and all manner of things to do with the public engagement in this project. Now, for a very brief resume of the background. Nearly 40 years of neglect of our beautiful station. There it is in all its beauty in 1840, and more recently, in the state it was in when we took it over. 40 years of neglect by the previous owner and several unsuccessful attempts by the local authorities and indeed the trust to try and persuade him to do the right thing and dispose of the building, or at least to carry out repairs. None of those were successful, I'm sorry to say, which presented us with this building in a dire state in the late 2010s and later. Now, a crucial element in the campaign to save this building was the work done by the South Wingfield Local History Group in drawing everyone's attention to the supreme significant importance of this building, the last of 16 stations designed by Francis Thompson along the line from Derby to Leeds. This is the last survivor of a very important group of railway architectural constructions. And in 2015, the group persuaded Historic England to regrade this building from its previous grade 2 status to its grade 2 star status. And that really was crucial in not only drawing attention to the building, but opening up the possibilities of assistance, financial and otherwise, from Historic England to saving the project. Now, if we turn to the next slide, we'll get some idea of the images of the station prior to us acquiring it. The important words here are CPO, the letters are CPO, compulsory purchase order. There was no other way of saving this building open to the authorities other than compulsory acquisition. So in 2018, Amber Valley Borough Council served a compulsory purchase order on the then owner. This was supported by the Secretary of State, and the compulsory acquisition went through, with leading to the handover to the trust in this awful state. But there we are, December 2019, a year after the compulsory purchase order was served, the building came to the trust, handed over by Amber Valley. That's not to say that an awful lot of work had not been done in the background before this happened, because nobody is going to take over, no authority is going to serve a compulsory purchase order, and the Secretary of State would not have approved it had it not been for considerable amount of work carried out between the trust, the council, Historic England and the lottery, preparing the ground for a project that would save this building and give it a new use. So this work had been going on in the background, and the point we arrived at getting the keys in December 2019, we knew exactly what we had to do and how we could do it, but a lot of things remained unknown. However, we are well down the road, we're all pleased to say. And at that point, I think I'll hand back to Lucy, who's going to take you further on in the story.
Thank you, Alan. So I'm going to briefly talk about what we did during phase 1 of the project. So the National Lottery Heritage Fund awarded Derbyshire Historic Buildings Trust £137,000 for the development phase. The main purpose of this phase was to work up the architectural designs, undertake surveys, including an excellent conservation management plan produced by Mel Morris, ascertain the costs of the project, and carry out consultation with communities and other stakeholders. So Amber Valley Borough Council thankfully carried out the non-enviable job of clearing the building before any work had started. I did go along during this clearance and it was a horrible job, but the weather didn't help, but it was, you can see from that image, so much stuff was coming out of the building after all these years of not being kept. So that was not an enviable task. We then set about making the site safe and secure. And even at this point we had, and this was during COVID times, we had volunteers helping us as and when they could, which we were really grateful for. And then, slide going along, in May 2020, we received the excellent news that we'd secured a grant from Historic England from their Repair Grants for Heritage at Risk programme. This first grant was for £20,000 and it was a development project costs relating to the preparation of the architectural plans for the re-roofing and essential trackside works, the surveys and the capital work tender documentation. We also received at this point an in-principle grant offer from Historic England to actually undertake the capital works. And we were later able to secure this funding in 2021. This was all happening alongside the delivery of our first lottery phase. So we were very pleased that the urgent work started in earnest in October 2021. The work was undertaken by Derbyshire Conservation Contractors, ASBC, who did an amazing job. For those of you who've been around since, you'll see the wonderful workmanship they undertook. The repair works included the erection of scaffolding to the west elevations, the trackside elevations. This involved significant liaison with Network Rail, as the work had to be done during a specific window at night time, and we had to give them plenty of notice because obviously it meant the track had to be closed whilst the work was taking place. So we had a lot of discussions about timings, and we had to give 12 weeks notice, so there was a lot of forward planning when things were quite difficult to forward plan. It was a very costly but necessary exercise, and thankfully everything went to plan on both the erection of the scaffolding and when it was taken down. The other works included the roof works to the station and the adjacent parcel shed, including the roof coverings and the removal, repair and replacement of the chimney stacks. And you can see the scaffolding there on the bottom right showing, you know, it was an amazing structure really that was created to lift up these huge chimney pots. Also during the urgent repairs was stonework repairs on the trackside elevation. So the main point was trying to get all the trackside works done during this phase of works, so we would not need to go back and impact on the Network Rail infrastructure in the future. Here's some more slides showing urgent work repair work. So we did window and door replacement and repairs and replacements to the rainwater goods, removed any rotten lintels, and we also carried out works to improve the access to the driveway up towards the station. So as a result of all this work, we now have some amazing before and after images showing the impact of ASBC's work. On the 14th of June 2022, we had the handover meeting with the contractor, marking the end of our first phase of capital works. And again, that's from the front. And at that point, we sent out invitations for expressions of interest for the next phase of works. which will be mainly funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, following the success in May of our application for £667,000. And now I think Peter is going to take over and talk to you more about what we're going to be doing this year in terms of capital works.
Thank you, Lucy. So here we are in 2023, just a little over 2 years since we first took ownership of the site, and some 5 years since we first became involved in what was to become an amazing project. Following completion of the urgent works phase, the Trust, thanks to Lucy's guidance and skill, secured a second round Heritage Lottery Fund grant to enable us to move to complete the project. And the timing for this is there on the screen. 5 tenders were received and analysed, and with the agreement of HLF, a contractor has been issued with a letter of intent and hopefully will start their site setup during February. Provided there are no delays or snags encountered, the second phase works are expected to complete during August, followed by 8 weeks of events and full public access, after which the premises will become available for prospective tenants. Now, let me at this point just confirm. The station house and the adjoining parcel shed will be fully open to the public on at least 6 days a year, mainly bank holidays, plus the annual National Heritage Day in September. Tenants will be expected to respect their historic surroundings, furniture appropriately, and actively engage on public open days. And the Trust already operates in this way at our main office in Wirksworth, Hopkinson's house. I think most people will be aware of our plans for the station buildings, but just a very quick recap. The intended reuse will be as commercial offices, let to produce a long-term income stream, enabling the Trust to ensure the site and buildings are properly maintained deep into the future. During the options appraisal phase, we looked at every possible option for reuse in conjunction with Historic England, local planning, and Conservation Officer. The conclusion was unanimous. Given the importance of the station buildings, their almost complete original state, and available external sources of funding, only the conversion to office space would result in the lowest impact and intervention on the buildings and site, and enabling the Trust to then adopt as its design concept the reinstatement of the station house as it would have been seen by the very first travellers that came to the station on the 11th of May 1840. Our approved scheme changes nothing internally. No walls are moved or removed, and whilst the principal point of entry into the building will become via the porter's room, the main entrance doorway remains intact and capable of use. The modern 1970s concrete floor that replaced the original timber flooring will be removed and replaced with limecrete over foam glass aggregate to incorporate underfloor heating and power distribution. Power sockets will be laid in the floors. The final floor finish, buff Yorkstone flags bedded in lime mortar. This approach creates a breathable but insulated floor substrata. There will not be any modern fittings fixed to internal walls, no radiators, switches or sockets. Lighting will be via uplighters plugged into floor sockets, and the energy source, electric air source heat exchangers. A sensitive approach by the architect, the fire officer and building control has enabled the team to design out the need for unsightly break glass alarms and pyro cabling, yet still ensure our occupants' safety. Paint analysis determined the original colour schemes to walls, woodwork and fireplaces, whilst the remains of wallpaper in the ladies' waiting room identified the original pattern which will be reproduced to that room. We have been awarded a separate grant towards the cost of restoring the Porter's stove, for which we've actually got the original plans courtesy of the Midland Railway Research Centre, and the wall safe, almost certainly a Milner's of Speak in Liverpool, that has been successfully opened for the first time in probably more than 50 years to reveal absolutely nothing. Externally, we know that the surface of the station yards has only ever been loose limestone chippings, and this will be reinstated, as will original finishes to what remains of the north and south platforms. But it is important that we're accessible to all for tomorrow's visitors, so some hard surface disabled parking bays and wheelchair-friendly routes over the site will be incorporated. All new services will be required and brought in: power, water, connection to the main sewer in Home Lane, and IT. Station approach itself will be managed by the Trust and will be adapted to provide a limited number of parking laybys for occasional visitors to the site. We have something like 3/4 of an acre of woodland, at the moment probably best described as scrubland, and a long-term comprehensive management plan will be implemented to enhance both the site and visitor experience. Permanent external exhibits showing our very important finds, such as original sleeper stones and a mock-up of the methodology of railway construction that would have been used in 1838 when the line was first laid. The remains of the 5-ton hand-operated crane on the goods platform, and the reinstatement of the 3-metre wide by 130-metre granite set roadway that was constructed alongside the long-gone single-track siding that we intend to reinstate. A series of bollards will be placed alongside the granite set roadway, each bollard representing one of the original stations built by the North Midland Railway Company in 1840, 16 in all, representing the 72 miles between Derby and Leeds. Each bollard will have a QR code attached so that visitors will be able to read and in some cases see those early stations of which, as you know, Wingfield is the only sole survivor. Additional intermediate stations were added later, and all of this does form part of this final phase. And last, but far from least, something that does not belong at Wingfield Station, but is intrinsically woven into its history. We have been given the huge stone-carved armorial arms of the North Midland Railway Company that once adorned the top of the main entrance into Derby Railway Station, as can be seen on the lithograph on the screen in front of you. Carved by John Thomas of Birmingham and thought lost forever, it turned up earlier this year in the garden of the former Littleover Hall after being sold by the Derbyshire Fire Authority. The purchaser and developer of that site has kindly offered the stone edifice for us to reassemble at Wingfield. Look carefully at the photograph and you will see the arms of Derby, Leeds and Sheffield. The line was intended to link the then 3 towns, but Stevenson decided the cost of overcoming the gradient into Sheffield was uneconomical and bypassed Sheffield, Normanton becoming the stop for Sheffield. The slightly later armorial arms for the North Midland Railway, one of which is held in Derby Museum and a photograph of which is on the screen, interestingly omits the arms for Sheffield and replaces it with a crown over the letters A-R, either side of the Derbyshire red rose. The logic of this change is a complete mystery, bearing in mind that the NMR was effectively absorbed into the Midland Counties Railway in 1844 to become the new Midland Railway Company. We have 2 possible explanations, but the challenge, which I will throw out there to all of you interested, remains to find the real meaning of the revised symbolism. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So hello, I will start this section by talking about the ways we are going to engage people with the station's heritage, and we have a few different projects lined up for this year, and then I'll hand over to Rachel. So I'm going to start by talking about the further and higher education. So there's going to be quite a lot of work on this aspect. So we're working with Chesterfield College, and 5 of their construction students will be provided with a work experience placement at the station during the restoration build and work. So they'll work alongside the contractor, and they'll learn a range of techniques involved in restoring a heritage building. With students from Nottingham Trent University, we have 2 sessions booked in, I think this month, for site survey experience, and that's to do that before the capital works take place. We've been in discussions with Wingfield College, who on their course to do with sort of landscape planning, etc., a lot of landscape design. They've been talking about a project to look at how you can incorporate planters into the heritage building to benefit wildlife. A draft brief has been sent to the college along with plans and photos of areas where the planters could be useful to feature and not detract from the conservation design of the actual building itself. And we're awaiting some designs from the students, and we will look at how we can implement those over the year. With Derby University, we have been working with the photography course to do a project. We have selected a number of students who responded to a creative brief, and the students were selected because of the approach they took. We thought would not only complement one another, but they really engaged with the heritage and importance of Wingfield Station. They will make 3 visits to the station to document the capital works reconstruction work, probably 1 before work starts, 1 during the work, and then 1 after the works are completed. And I think the first one visit is scheduled for next month. And they will produce an exhibition which will then be put on public display later in the autumn, where you'll be able to see the results of their work. With schools, we have been working with South Wingfield Primary School for a long period of time, who are very interested in the site and in bringing pupils to the site. They're going to make some visits during the reconstruction work. And they will be supported by Derbyshire Environmental Studies Unit, part of the County Council, to produce learning activities and learning events for the pupils during their site visits. So they should be able to really have a very engaging way of finding out about not only the heritage of the building, but the work going on to restore it. Another local school, secondary school, David Napier Academy, have an annual employers challenge for their year 9 students. They're sort of 13 to 14-year-olds, and they have approximately 140 students who each year work with an outside organisation outside of the school to develop a sort of response to a challenge set by that organisation, where the students come up with a solution to whatever that challenge is. So our challenge is for them to develop an open day activity programme to tell the story of the station to people of their own age, to their peers. That age group are hard to reach usually with heritage projects. So we've thrown down the gauntlet to that age group for them to tell us what they would find interesting in terms of an activity to bring the station alive. So that should start in July. They have a week from beginning the challenge to completion. They will make a visit to the station. Then they will pitch their ideas within the school over a series of rounds until they have a set of finalists, and then one of the trustees, or possibly Rachel or me, will then go and have the slightly dubious privilege of having to choose a winner from them all, which is slightly nerve-wracking, of course. And then what we're hoping is that as part of the launch program, which I'll get on to talk about soon in the autumn, their new intake of year 9s can then try out this activity and give us some feedback, so we can then sort of amend it or change it, but also the trust can learn from that whole process some ways of engaging that age group with heritage. Right, guided tours. There have been a lot of guided tours which have been very popular of the station, led by people such as Peter, Alan and Barry. So this programme will continue. On the whole, they've been open to the general public who can just book via Eventbrite. But if you know of a particular group, or you're a member of a particular group or organisation where you think your members would be interested in attending a tour for your group, please let us know. Please get in touch, and I'm sure we can schedule one specifically for your group. We're also, and I won't steal Rachel's thunder, but we are looking for people who might take over the role of leading the guided tours from Alan, Peter and Barry, whose time is limited to a certain extent. So if you fancy having a go at becoming a tour guide, Rachel will tell you a little bit about that, a bit more about that. As well as tours, there will be the open days that Peter mentioned, and also the parcel shed. We're hoping that will actually be open a bit more often to host a model railway station, a model railway of the station and lines of circa 1947, which is being created and will be maintained by a local volunteer model railway enthusiast. He's already built the signal box and has a sort of full-scale paper plan of his 00 gauge railway, and hopefully once that's up and running and he's in the parcel shed, there will be more room for exhibitions in there, and hopefully he'll be able to open maybe once a month. He's thinking he can do that. So I've mentioned the launch program already. So there is a window of opportunity between when the capital works, the restoration building work is completed, and the tenant moves in of a number of weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. So we are going to make the most of that period to host a set of public events. There will be guided tours. There will hopefully be the Employers Challenge. I mentioned that the Academy is producing, and we are developing a programme to appeal to a wide range of people, hopefully, at that period. And the photo exhibition will be from the University of Derby students will be also on display then as well. But as I say, over the next few weeks, we'll probably develop a few more ideas for how to fill out that those few weeks of the launch programme with a wide range of events and activities. And instrumental to that will be the new fixed interpretation, the new signs which are going around the station. These will be in place for that launch programme. There will be a number of panels which will tell the story of the station and the people linked with it. These are based on a set of 5 topics which are linked to the historical research, and they include such things as the origins and significance of the station, the uses of the station, the types of goods and passengers who travel there, the people who are connected with it, its closure, and the restoration, so this restoration project. They will be low on text, high in images, and include some audio from planned oral history work. So there will be 2 hubs, such as the one that you can see on your screen now, which will have a bit more in-depth information on them. One will be in front of the station next to those bollards that Peter mentioned, and you can see in the image there those bollards, and placed on some original stone sets from the station or station yard. The other one will be on the goods platform near to the railway line as well. There will be also 2 welcome signs, which will be very brief, and the idea of those is to just very quickly get over the importance and significance of the station and the fact it's been restored for people who are walking by on the public footpath, or people who just turn up to the station and it's sort of the first thing they will see. There will be 2 or 3 more other signs as well, one to interpret those memorials arms that Peter showed, and one to interpret the site of colliery railway tracks, which were on the approach road. There will also be a historical booklet, possibly based on the 1842 railway guidebook. And we're also producing a pull-up banner to visit other destinations, just to alert people to the work that's happened at the station and to encourage people to visit. There will be a number of online articles published on the Trust's website. These will be based on the historical research which Rachel's going to talk about. And we're hoping that some of these we may even get them published in various journals or local newspapers. And now it's my turn to hand over to Rachel.
Thanks, Bill. Great. So, yeah, I don't know if you might have noticed that most of the things that Bill was talking about, the engagement work we're doing, apart from perhaps the guided tours, are mainly directed at getting new people involved with the station project. But we also know that there's so many people who, like you here today, who are completely passionate about the project and would love an opportunity to get involved as well. So, I mean, we've already got our DHBT trustees who all volunteer their time to make this project happen. And we're also looking for people to help us out, contribute to the project in 3 other main areas. If this is something that you think might be interesting to you, we've put up on the screen an email address. So if you jot that down and want to let us know if you're interested, then we can send out some information and get in contact with you, give you some more information about how to get involved. But if I just go over the 3 main areas, then that might help you have an idea of what's available. So Bill is taking charge of organising oral history research and documentary research of the station. South Wingfield History Group are on board with this and doing amazing contributions, but there's also room for other people who have an interest in finding out aspects of the site's history and looking into that for us. So we've got people looking into everything from the station and the line, the employees and the passengers, and the impact of the station on South Wingfield community and beyond. So yeah, do let us know if you want to be involved with that. So far, the group have visited the Midland Railway Study Centre at the Museum of Making in Derby. And we have a research trip coming up on the 18th of January to the Derbyshire Records office in Matlock, and there's some documents that are waiting for us there to go and pore over and see what we can glean from them. Bill is also running a training session on the 25th of January, which will be on online research and using all those resources on the internet to build our knowledge of the station and find reliable sources. And along with that, he'll be doing some training into the oral history research, because if you spend any time on site at Wingfield, someone will come up to you and tell you their recollections of the station, and there's so much rich information there that we'd really like to capture that and make that more widely available to people. So kind of the purpose of this, apart from just popping it into records so it's there for the future, is, as Bill says, we've got some interpretation panels that we would like to populate with interesting information. We've got space on the website, and we can potentially publish articles to share all this fabulous stuff that we're finding out. So next up, Lucy, we've got, yes, our scrubby woodland. So obviously a lot of the talk so far has been about the station, but we do have this sort of woodland area, some of which is ash, and a lot of which is sort of overgrown hawthorn. And there's work to do on this patch to sort of improve the setting for the station and to make it better for wildlife. We actually met in December, some of the volunteers, and had a first session clearing brambles. So I know it's nowhere near as impressive as the before and after pictures of the station, but on the left is the patch of brambles before we cleared them. On the right is that same area afterwards, marked by the parked car and the gatepost. And at the very bottom, you can see the stone sets that were revealed. And this patch actually is going to be where one of those interpretation panels that Bill showed you an image of is going to be situated. So we really needed to do this so that we can open up that view of the station and pop in some information just to help people get it in context as they walk past. We've got a session coming up on the 29th of January. We'll be back on site, continuing to clear some of the brambles, and we'll start maintaining some of that scrubby undergrowth in the woodlands that actually starting to impinge on the neighbours' fencing. So we want to cut that back a little bit before it starts doing any more damage. And from then on, the plan is to carry on meeting around once a month, just to keep on working on managing the woodland, both for wildlife, as a setting for the station, and also in terms of health and safety. So you'll see at the back of the pictures where the volunteers are working, there's a bit of an embankment. And on this embankment are some ash trees, which unfortunately are showing signs of being infected with ash dieback. So both in terms of their kind of precarious situation on the bankside and this threat of disease from the ash dieback, these are going to be taken back down, and we'll be looking at putting in nest boxes and other doing other activities to improve the site for wildlife. So in terms of event support, as Bill mentioned, we are going to be keeping up with our programme of guided tours, which have been ever popular. And at the moment, Peter and Alan and Barry are mostly carrying these, and we'd love to have other people come in and help us support these events. We know lots of people are very knowledgeable about the station, so we're sure there are people out there who'd love to welcome visitors on site and just give them insight into how special the station is. If you would love to help with the public events but are not quite so keen on the idea of hosting a guided tour, obviously our launch events, there's going to be lots of opportunity to get involved with helping to prepare and set up and welcome people on site. At the moment, we're starting to pull together this programme of potential activities. We're going to be looking at it more in the spring. We're just prioritising getting the history research and the ground maintenance off the ground, as they were quite time constrained in terms of working on the woodland site during the winter when the trees are dormant and there are no wet nesting birds, and the oral history and research, because we need a bit of lead-in time to get our panels printed and produced. So event support, that's going to be coming up in the spring. And we'd love your help with ideas and planning and being there to welcome visitors at the time when we're open and delivering those events. So I think if that's given you a bit of an appetite for getting involved, if not, there'll be the email address again at the end of the session that you can just jot down, and the person at the other end of that email is our new volunteer admin support, Victoria. She's doing an internship from Derby University, and she's just started with us on Friday, so she'll be finding her feet, but she'll be able to send you out information on sign up forms and more detail about each of the different activities we've got going on. So I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. So I'm just finishing up with a bit, just explaining where we are with our funding. So I think you've probably gathered we've worked hard to secure over £1.2 million worth of funding since we started the project. but we're still seeking the final 250 grand to complete the funding gap. We are applying to other trusts and foundations. It's how I spent my Christmas break. However, we are asking for support from those who are able to. Last year, we launched the Friends of Wingfield Station, which you can join from as little as £1.50 a month, and then access benefits, including being the first to see the completed project and priority access to events later this year. In August 2022, we ran a really successful sponsored bike ride from Leeds to Derby, inspired by the original North Midland Line route. This was a 90-mile fundraiser undertaken by some who hadn't ridden a bike for 40 years, not mentioning any names, Peter. If you would like to undertake a sponsored event in aid of the project, please do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. This, just to give you a scale of how much money was raised, this sponsored bike ride raised nearly £15,000. So it was an amazing experience. Everyone really enjoyed it who took part, and we're very grateful to everyone who sponsored the cycle riders. Oh, sorry. As Peter said, last month we did get our hopes up when we finally, with the help of a locksmith, opened the safe from inside the booking office. And we wondered, could this answer our funding prayers? But sadly, the drawer was empty, as you can see in those photos there. We also have a sponsorship programme with different levels of sponsorship available for all sizes of business and individuals. This provides an excellent opportunity to give back something to the community, area or industry in which your company or yourself operates. Sponsors will be acknowledged in various places, including on the bollards that Bill and Peter mentioned earlier. I want to say a personal huge thank you to all those who have generously donated to date. I know many of you on the call today have done so. It is appreciated, and every penny will go towards saving this significant building. If you're not able to support it yourself, maybe you know of a business or individual who might and can put us in touch. Again, we'd be really happy to hear from you. All the contact details will be shared on a slide we show at the end, but everything is available on our website as well, so you can look us up there. I think that brings us to the end of the presentation. So thank you ever so much for joining us this afternoon. I can now open up for any questions. So you can either choose to put them in the chat box or unmute yourself and ask, and I will try and share the questions and direct you to the best person to answer them. Thank you. Would anyone like to start? There must be some questions. Anyone? I can't believe there aren't any questions. There are always questions.
Yeah, I have Lucy.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
I can't see who's talking, but hi.
I'll wave so you can see me. Mentioning about sponsorship.
Yep.
You know, I've banged on about this before.
Yes, you have. Yeah.
Is the idea that you or someone of your kind of caliber will be approaching the companies that you may have suggested to you?
Yes, we've got, is it okay if I answer this one, Peter? I think that's probably, yeah. We've got specific trustees who are focusing on the corporate and business sponsorship side. So they are happy to make the contact unless there's someone else already with links to the organisation and would be better placed to make that first approach, Ian. So it's what, if you've got connections in there, then that would be fine. But just as long as we keep a record of it and we know that's what's happening, that's absolutely brilliant. Yes. And we can link in about that again, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Has anyone got any questions about volunteering or the launch programme? I think there was a question earlier from someone about wanting to know if we were running any tours before the building works start. Any more tours, Rachel and Bill? That's probably one for you.
Yeah, I think we've been running tours regularly, haven't we, through the project, and they seem to still be popular, and we would look to have another tour. I think, Peter, I'm not sure how limited we will be by the building works as to when we can run tours, whether that will kind of cut down our options a little bit.
Well, once we've got a confirmed program with our contractor, and we can still hold a tour during the site setup, but obviously not once construction begins, we'll have a better idea of opportunities for some tours towards the end of January and the early part of February. So, yep, we'd love to do some more tours, and we'd welcome everyone that's able to come along.
I think I should mention that we have factored in some public hard hat tour dates during the construction phase, and again that comes back to, if you're already a friend of Wingfield Station or a friend of DHBT, you will get priority access to go on those hard hat tours, but that is seeing building during the construction phase rather than just before we go into this next section. Had a question through the chat. I think, Peter, you're best to answer this one, from Philip, saying, on public open days, will there be adequate car parking space? Which is a really good question.
Will there be adequate
car parking space?
Oh, well, it all depends how many people turn up. We're certainly going to make more parking available alongside the station approach. But with the continuing kindness of the church or the parish council, we would hope that we can continue to use the church hall car park as an overspill car park.
Thank you. Bill and Rachel, do volunteers need to be DBS checked?
No, volunteers do not need to be. If there's a position where a volunteer will be by themselves with children, then you would definitely have to be DBS checked, but we're not envisaging that circumstance on the horizon.
And Bill, what is the training available for volunteers, please? Is that question.
Right, so from my side of things, the training session on the 25th of January, that includes a session on online historical sources and how to research catalogues, databases and other online sources. Then there will be an introduction to oral history, which should help you understand how to ask questions, how to set up for an interview, and how to use the equipment and the sort of questions we might be looking to ask. And then a little bit later, in sort of late winter, early spring, I'll be holding a workshop on writing for the web, writing for interpretation. So the techniques to write up your research in a way that is appealing to people who may not be as interested as we are in the subject. All of those are designed for people with absolutely no experience in any of those to begin with. So if you're a complete newcomer to research, oral history or writing, then you will be very much, welcome and have the tools to help you do that. But also, we've got a fairly small group of people, so I can tailor those workshops to your level as well and give you some, one-to-one guidance or advice if you've already done a bit of research. So that's from my side. That's the research. The training we're putting together, and I think Rachel has a little bit as well from the side that she's managing.
Yeah, so in terms of the ground maintenance, we've got Derbyshire Wildlife Trust who will be able to come and help us out with certain things. I think they're going to be working with us, particularly in terms of looking at putting together a longer term management plan for the site, so that we can kind of continue to look look after it after the project has finished in a suitable manner. There's also funding in the project for first aid training, which is going to be particularly relevant for people involved in events and on the grounds maintenance side of things as well. So when we've got kind of stable volunteer teams, we'll start looking at programming that in so that we've got people trained up in first aid where we need it, who are likely to be able to support the events and activities that we want them at. So I think that kind of on the whole covers it for the for training for volunteers.
Thanks both. This is lovely to see. We've got a student from Broomfield actually attending the call, Joe, who said it's a very open brief. You might want to contact Joe separately, I guess, but she's asking if the trust have any particular requirements about the planters, size, materials, quantity. I don't know, perhaps this is one for Barry or Alan to respond to in terms of sort of fitting in with the conservation philosophy.
I think if I chip in as well, just in terms of that, I will get in touch with Mike again later on this week, and I can make sure that I put across the size measurements to him that we have for the areas that we discussed in the brief. I wasn't sure what stage it had gone to, and it's great to hear it's got to students. So yeah, we can give you more details about the size of the areas that we have to fill for that.
Lovely, thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Joe.
Do you have any training courses for people who want to volunteer to be guides from Ken? So Rachel and Bill.
Yes, we will. Once we know the number of people who want to be guides, we'll organise a training event that will probably be with one of the people who have already led the guided tour, such as Peter, so you can shadow them to see what they do. But we can also throw in some tour guide techniques as well, to just enhance, how you deliver that information.
Excellent. Andrew just asked, he missed the start, but the recording will be available to all. I'll put it on our YouTube channel, which is worth having a look at anyway, because there's a couple of really good films that we produced over the last 2 years that show the sort of progression with the state of the building. So please do have a look at that. So yes, it will be available on YouTube and on our website, so you should be able to catch up with that. Any other questions? It's 3 o'clock, nearly 10 to 3, so we've not done badly with time. Do any of the trustees want to say anything else or anything you missed? No?
Don't think so, thank you.
Okay, so unless there are any last minute queries, you can always contact us on the emails shown on the screen. But thank you ever so much for joining us. Really pleased to have your interest and involvement. Thanks to all for joining, and we look forward to seeing you this year. Thanks everyone, and goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.